Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're taking a whole stack of interesting source materials, articles, bits of research, notes, and basically pulling out the key stuff, the essentials, just for you.
And today, we're diving into Nuuk. It's the capital of Greenland, or Nuuk in Greenlandic.
A really vibrant place from what we've seen.
Absolutely. So geographically, it's perched on the southwest coast, right at the mouth of this huge fjord system, the Nuuk Greenland.
Okay.
And if you're trying to picture it latitude-wise, think sort of Reykjavik or maybe Fairbanks, Alaska. Same kind of neighborhood, way up north.
Right, so properly Arctic.
Yeah.
And it's the political, cultural, economic hub.
It really is, despite, the relatively small population size.
Yeah, the numbers are interesting. About 18,000, maybe 20,000 people. Which, okay, makes it Greenland's largest city easily.
By far.
But our sources kept saying it feels much bigger because it's the main international port, the center of everything.
It definitely punches above its weight, yeah. It's the core of national life there.
So our mission today really is to unpack all these sources we've gathered to get a handle on Nuuk's unique character.
Exactly. It's this fascinating mix, isn't it? Deep history, the indigenous Inuit culture, then the layers of Danish influence and modern Arctic life, all happening right there.
Against this backdrop of just stunning nature.
Oh, absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So we want to pull out those key insights, maybe some surprising facts, basically give you the shortcut to being really well informed about Nuuk.
And we've got some great stuff to work with. History, sites, culture, even a local perspective, which is always gold.
Yeah, those are great.
The big themes seem to be that indigenous heritage, the whole Danish colonial story, and how modern life works up there.
So where do we start? History. The founding.
Let's go back, way back, even before the modern city. The sources mentioned earlier people, right?
Yeah, definitely. People have lived in that area for a very long time. The Sequoia culture, they were there as far back as 2500 BCE. They left traces.
Wow. Okay, and Vikings?
Well, the Norse, they explored Greenland around the 10th century, left settlements further south, but not right where Nuuk is now, as far as we know from these sources.
So the city we know today really kicks off much later.
Much later, 1728. That's the key date for modern Nuuk.
With Hansa Jane.
Right, the Danish-Norwegian missionary. He arrives, establishes the settlement, and his stated goal, his mission, was focused on the Inuit people already living there.
Bringing Christianity, European ways, trying to improve their lives was the idea.
That was the stated objective, yes. He called the place Godthab, which means good hope.
But his legacy, it's complicated. The sources are pretty clear on that.
Very complicated. He's known as the Apostle of Greenland. And sure, eventually things like modern heating, electricity, running water came in with later developments, those blocks.
But the cost culturally was huge.
Immense. Our sources really stress this. His mission fundamentally disrupted traditional Inuit beliefs, their whole way of life, their connection to the land, which had existed for centuries.
Yeah, the sources use phrases like destructive impact.
And describe his legacy as, at best, mixed. The effects of that cultural collision are still being felt. It's definitely not a simple story of progress.
No, not at all. And this original settlement, Ijid's Godthab, was centered around the colonial harbor area, right?
That's right. Which leads to this really interesting contrast today, according to the sources.
How so?
Well, if you stand down there in the old colonial harbor with those colorful old buildings, it still feels like a small, almost quaint Greenlandic fishing village. Very traditional vibe.
Okay, I can picture that.
But then you just turn around.
And bam, modern city.
Exactly. Because after being a pretty small outpost for a long time, Denmark pushed hard to modernize Greenland in the post-war era, especially the 50s and 60s.
Leading to this big building boom in Nuuk.
Huge boom. Lots of new apartment blocks went up. And they did offer modern amenities, plumbing, heating, big improvements over traditional housing in some ways.
There's always a but.
But the sources are quite blunt. These blocks had, and I quote, no connection whatsoever with traditional Inuit culture or ways of living.
So, kind of imposed from the outside. Top-down modernization.
Very much so. Physically functional, maybe, but culturally disconnected.
Which really highlights that tension you mentioned earlier, modernity versus heritage.
Yeah, how do you grow and change while holding on to what makes you you? And you see this playing out in Nuuk's art scene, too, interestingly.
Right. The sources mentioned street art on those very blocks.
Yes. Those sometimes infamous blocks from the 50s are now these huge canvases for monumental street art. It's quite a transformation.
Yeah.
And there's other distinctive art all over.
I love that. Any specific examples mentioned?
Yeah, a few. There's a big sculpture near the northern entrance to the downtown area. It depicts a famous Greenlandic legend about a meeting between a young orphan boy and the Lord of Power.
Wow. Deeply symbolic.
And another one is the Mother of the Sea sculpture, also very symbolic. She protects sea creatures from human wrongdoings. The story goes, a shaman has to comb her hair, get the impurities out, basically ask forgiveness so she'll allow people to hunt and fish again. Speaks volumes about that connection to the sea.
And the consequences of disrespecting it. That's powerful.
There's also one called the People of Greenland sculpture, representing North, West, and East Greenland supporting each other. Unity.
So the art is really telling stories, reflecting identity, not just decoration.
Exactly. And it's not just visual art. The sources point to Nuuk as the place for Greenlandic fashion, too.
Oh yeah, like local designers.
Mentions a cool Inuit brand, and specifically BB Chemnitz, who's pretty well known, splits her time between Nuuk and Copenhagen. That blend again, local and global.
And music. There was a mention of Music Hub?
Atlantic music. Yeah, sounds like the heart of the music scene, and also a good spot for like authentic souvenirs.
Okay, cool. Now speaking of getting around, this was one of the most surprising things in the sources. Transportation.
Ah, yes. The road situation. Or lack thereof.
Right. So Nuuk has traffic, like a normal city. Lights, cars.
Oh yeah, rush hour, the whole deal. Feels urban in that sense.
But you absolutely cannot drive out of Nuuk.
Not a single road connects it to any other town or settlement in Greenland. Nothing.
Like Juneau in Alaska, the sources said.
Exactly like that. So if you want to leave Nuuk, you're flying or you're taking a boat. Period.
So, note to self. Don't rent a car thinking you'll do a Greenland road trip from Nuuk.
Definitely not. It's just for getting around town.
That is wild. Okay, so within the city, what are the must-see spots, according to our sources? The National Museum got a big mention.
Huge mention. Called a must-visit, and you can see why.
Housed in an old colonial building.
Yep, beautiful setting, and it covers the whole sweep, Greenland's cultural heritage, incredible Inuit clothing, tools, Viking artifacts, modern history.
But the real standout
are the mummies, the 15th century Greenland mummies.
Quite literally frozen in time.
Exactly. Women and children, incredibly preserved. It's apparently this just astonishingly direct look into the lives of people from over 500 years ago.
Sounds absolutely unmissable for understanding that deep history.
Totally. And then for the more contemporary side,
the Nuuk Art Museum, focused on modern Greenlandic art.
Right. Painting, sculpture, photography. It's where you see artists grappling with identity today, their relationship with nature, modern life in the Arctic. And the collection keeps evolving.
Reflecting what's happening now makes sense.
Yeah.
And we can't ignore Hans Egid's physical presence either. The monument.
Yeah, there's a monument honoring him, overlooking the city, symbolizing his role, however complex we see it now.
And his church is nearby, too.
The Hans Egid Church, yeah. Built 1849, so quite old for Greenland. Classic colonial style, and apparently offers great views, too.
Nice. And then there's the place it all started, the old colonial harbor.
Still there, still charming, apparently. Those colorful houses, the historic heart. Still a hub of activity.
Sounds like a good place for a stroll. Get that sense of the city's origins.
Exactly, that visual link to the past we were talking about earlier.
But Nuuk isn't just the town itself. The setting is a huge part of it. Those fjords.
Oh, the fjords are everything. The sources call it a simply spectacular network dominated by the Nuuk-Kangerlua, or Godthops Fjord, which is enormous.
So exploring that means getting out on the water.
Pretty much. Boat tours are the main way. You get these breathtaking views, glaciers, mountains, cliffs, icebergs up close.
Sounds incredible. Hiking, too.
Yeah, there's hiking along the coastlines accessible from the city, but the boat really opens up the scale of it.
And winter changes everything, obviously.
Completely different world. Dog sledding, snowmobiling, those become the ways to experience the vast, snowy landscapes outside the city.
More adventure stuff.
Definitely. And for serious hikers, Mount Stormalin, right outside Nuuk, it's described as a steep, challenging climb.
But the reward.
Amazing panoramic views from the top city, fjord, wilderness. Worth it if you're fit enough, apparently.
And of course, those classic Arctic experiences, northern lights.
Yep, best chances in winter, say late September to March, the aurora borealis.
And the flip side, in summer.
The midnight sun. For weeks, the sun just doesn't set. that surreal extended daylight.
Both sound pretty magical. Now, we also had that local perspective from Iwind, the music guy.
Yeah, his insights were really interesting. He talked about how Nuuk is different from other Greenlandic towns.
Because people move there from all over.
Exactly. He said it feels like a part of everybody in Greenland for that reason. He sees it getting bigger and bigger.
But he also stressed the community aspect still being strong.
He did. He mentioned people still connecting, helping each other, talking to strangers on the street, things he felt were maybe less common elsewhere, like in Europe.
Like a small town feel persisting in a growing capital.
Something like that. And he had that really compelling line about having something left from the old time.
Yeah, what did you make of that? Something left from the old time. Not destroyed, but needs to be used more.
Well, reading between the lines of all the sources, it feels like he's talking about those core Greenlandic cultural values, right? The community solidarity, the connection to nature, the traditional knowledge, storytelling.
The things that existed long before the modern blocks and Danish administration.
Precisely. He seems to be saying, look, modernization is happening, Nuuk is growing, but that essential Greenlandic identity, that's something, it's still here. And the challenge or the opportunity is to actively weave it into the future, not just leave it behind as history.
That's a really powerful idea about the city's soul, isn't it?
It really is.
So, okay, let's try and wrap this up, putting all these pieces together from the sources. Nuuk emerges as this city of real contrasts.
Definitely. Small population, huge significance, ancient indigenous roots meeting complex colonial history, and very modern Arctic life.
All set against that absolute spectacular natural backdrop.
And the key things we pulled out, that mixed, complicated legacy of Hans Eged's founding, the way the city's architecture tells its story, colonial charm, modern blocks, now street art reclaiming space.
The vibrant contemporary culture, art, fashion, music, the National Museum holding that deep history, especially those incredible mummies.
You can't forget the mummies.
Yep.
And that unique transport situation, no roads out.
Kind of defines its isolation and connection in a weird way. Plus, that strong community feel that Iwan highlighted, persisting despite the growth.
Yeah, it really seems like Nuuk offers this unique window into Greenland as a whole. Whether you're drawn by the history, the culture, the art, or just the raw Arctic beauty.
It feels like a gateway, for sure. So, maybe a final thought for you, based on all this. As Nuuk keeps growing, keeps attracting people, keeps stepping up its role as a capital, how does it do that?
How does it balance that?
Yeah, how does it embrace modernity and its capital city status while actively holding on to that strong community, that valuable something left from the old time that people clearly cherish?
What are the challenges there? What are the opportunities, maybe unique to Nuuk, in navigating that path and keeping its identity strong amidst all the change?
Something to think about.